One night, centuries ago, the moon over the Philippine islands began to disappear, and every village within earshot of the sea did the same thing at once, grabbed pots, gongs, drums, and started screaming at the sky. Not in fear, in fury. They were being robbed. The thief was Bakunawa, a sea dragon the size of a storm front rising from the deep to swallow the moon whole. And here's what you need to understand. This had worked before, 6 times. Because in the beginning, the elders said, the sky held 7 moons. Count them tonight. The dragon is the reason you'll stop at 1. Welcome to the mythology of the Philippines. 7,000 islands whose gods have been ignored by every documentary you've ever seen. Poseidon is about to look very, very boring. We'll watch the dragon eat all 6 moons. But a monster this hungry only makes sense once you know whose sea it's stealing from. Start with geography. When your world is islands, the sea isn't a place, it's the main character. It feeds you, drowns you, connects you, and hides things. So the oldest gods here don't live on a mountain. They are the water. In the oldest recorded Visayan version, creation begins with 2 powers, Kaptan, god of the sky, and Magwayan, goddess of the sea. Their winds met, and from that meeting came the islands, the bamboo, and inside the bamboo, the first man and woman. Almost everything we know about these gods comes from documents like this, the Boxer Codex, painted in Manila around 1590. Spanish colonizers cataloging the beliefs of the people they had just conquered, filing paperwork on a world they were dismantling. Magwayan has a second job, and it's the one that makes Poseidon look like middle management. When you die, it's Magwayan who comes for you, ferrying your soul across the water to Sulid, the world below, sea goddess and boatman of the dead. 2 Greek gods' jobs, 1 woman. And this belief is old. This is the Manungul jar, a burial urn from a cave in Palawan, made almost 3,000 years ago. Look at the lid, 2 figures in a boat, a soul and its ferryman crossing to the other side. Carved 28 centuries before anyone wrote the name Magwayan down. Now, the dragon, Bakunawa, rises from the deepest part of the sea. The old descriptions are specific. A mouth the size of a lake, a red tongue, whiskers, gills, and a body that blots out the horizon. And it looks up at the sky, hungry. The gods, the story says, had hung 7 moons over the world, silver, perfect, low enough to touch the water with their light. To Bakunawa, they didn't look like moons, they looked like bait. So it rose, and one by one, it ate them. 6 moons vanished into that lake-sized mouth. Some say they melted, some say they're still inside, glowing through the dragon like lanterns through skin. 1 moon left. There's a gentler version told later where Bakunawa isn't greedy, it's in love, with the moon's light on the water, and swallowing is just the only way a dragon knows how to hold something. The islands kept both versions, so will we. Either way, the result is the same. When the moon darkens and turns the color of rust, that's not a shadow, that's an attack in progress. Old expressions for an eclipse across the islands say it plainly, the moon is being eaten. Which brings us back to the pots and pans. The response to an eclipse was total, coordinated noise. Gongs, drums, bamboo cannons, every voice in the village screaming, "Return our moon." The strategy, once again, was to be too loud for the apocalypse to bother with. Moon retention rate, so far, 100%. And if that sounds familiar, it should. In our episode on the Aztecs, a solar eclipse was fought off with the exact same weapon, drums and war cries. An ocean away, at the very same time, 2 civilizations, no contact, same conclusion, the sky listens to noise. Standing between the people in all of this, the dragon, the fairy of souls, the last moon, were the Babaylan, shamans, healers, astronomers, and overwhelmingly, women. This is the world the Spanish found. The Boxer Codex calls the Visayans Pimpados, the painted ones. Warriors tattooed from ankle to jaw, every mark earned, a voyage, a battle, a scar with a story, skin as biography. A Babaylan negotiated with spirits, read the tides, kept the calendar of planting and eclipse. In many communities, she outranked everyone but the chief. Then, in 1565, ships arrived, carrying men with a very different opinion about powerful women. The Babaylan were branded witches, the carved gods went into bonfires, shrines became churches. Within a few generations, one of the oldest living mythologies on Earth was officially gone. Officially. This is the Agusan image, a golden goddess from around the year 900, pulled from a riverbank in Mindanao in 1917. She survived because someone, long ago, buried her. The gods that made it through by hiding. Even the erasure had to borrow the old world's own hand. The Doctrina Christiana, 1593, the first book ever printed in the Philippines. A Christian catechism printed in Babaylan, the native script, the old alphabet teaching the new God. But here's the thing about Bakunawa. You can burn an idol, you can't burn a word, and you definitely can't burn a children's game. The dragon hid in the language, in eclipse words still spoken today, and it hid in a game, children in a circle, defending one child, the moon, from another, the dragon. For 4 centuries, Filipino kids have been refighting the apocalypse at recess, and the moon keeps winning. Today, Bakunawa is everywhere again. Festivals, tattoos, comics, games. Not revived, surfaced. There's a difference. A revival is a museum piece. A surfacing is something that was never actually dead. One honest note. The Philippines is 7,000 islands and more than 100 peoples. Tonight you heard the Visayan thread. Luzon tells it differently, Mindanao differently again. That's not a footnote, that's the point. This isn't one mythology, it's a constellation of them. And think about what survival means here. These stories outlived 300 years of systematic erasure by hiding in lullabies, eclipse words, and playground rules. A story that can do that is not a weak story, it's a patient one. Some night soon, the moon will darken and turn to rust, the way it always eventually does. Millions will look up and see orbital mechanics. Fair enough. But somewhere on those islands, someone's grandmother still knows what's actually happening up there. 7 moons, the dragon ate 6. The last one survives for a single reason. Every time it's threatened, somebody, somewhere, makes noise. So if you ever watch the moon going dark and feel a strange urge to bang a pot, don't fight it. You're guarding the last one.